Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic, also includes Atrahasis, the first great flood myth, by Timothy J. Stefani. Introduction. The Babylonian creation story, known in ancient times by its opening words Enuma Elish, meaning when the heavens above, is a concise presentation of Mesopotamian lore concerning the origins of the gods, the universe, and mankind. Although it is not certain just how far back the fundamental conceptions of this creation were first comprehended, they no doubt far precede this particular version of the Babylonian creation, which was uncovered as tablets from the ancient city of Nineveh, dating to the 7th century BC. Yet these tablets hold within them a composition which may have arisen towards the close of the 2nd millennium BC, made up of earlier material dating from the Bronze Age. Apart from its age and provenance, what is of interest in considering this creation myth and other Mesopotamian myths is the same which holds for any story that deals with essential human concerns, which have remained unchanged through time and history. Thus, such myths dealing with the origins of humanity also emphasize basic human preoccupations, acting as a means to explain the origin of our collective existence. Likewise, they stretch back as far as we are capable of reaching in reviewing the earliest written works of humanity, and containing beliefs, concerns, and the manner of life of men in the early phases of civilization. Likewise, their importance ranges wide based upon how far such seminal myths were shared among humanity, which characters who infuse world mythology and which are still known to us today, even if under different names. Thus, while the characters of Apsu, Tiamat, and Marduk are not widely familiar in the modern world, some of these have found their way via other Near Eastern myths to become known to us, specifically through the pages of the Bible. Most conspicuous among these is the name of Marduk, the great Babylonian sky god who appears in the book of Esther as Mordecai the Benjamite, as also does the goddess Ishtar appear as Esther herself. The deity Apsu represents the watery abyss which was believed since before the classical age to underlie the earth, and this conception holds in references to the abyss. But the name of Tiamat is also retained within the Genesis chapter 1 word for the deep, which is Tehom, also used in the book of Isaiah. Awake, awake, put on strength, O arm of the Lord. Awake, as in the ancient days, in the generations of old. Art thou not it that hath cut Rahab and wounded the dragon? Art thou not it which has dried the sea, the waters of the great deep, Tehom? That hath made the depths of the sea a way for the ransom to pass over? Isaiah 51, 9 through 10, KJV. And it is Isaiah who also forecasts the future display of Yahweh's might, recalling the deeds of his past, in saying, In that day the Lord, with his sore and great and strong sword, shall punish Leviathan, the piercing serpent, even Leviathan, that crooked serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that is in the sea. Isaiah 27, verse 1, KJV. Thus, in the sense the two gods of the fresh water and salt water, Apsu and Tiamat, might be most easily identified with the male and female Leviathans. And this primordial deep, at first enshrouded in darkness, also acts as the cauldron from which the creation of Genesis takes place. This cosmic sea was then populated by Leviathan and a number of other denizens from which the world was fashioned by God, just as it is with Marduk's creation found in Enuma Elish. Thou didst divide the sea by thy strength. Thou breakest the heads of the dragons in the waters. Thou breakest the heads of Leviathan in pieces, and gavest him to be meat to the people inhabiting the wilderness. Psalm 74, verses 13 through 14. The conflict between the sky god and the primordial serpent is often viewed in myth as being perpetual between the two, as long as the world endures, illustrated in the battle between Thor and the Midgard serpent, or Krishna and the dragon, Kali Naga. Thou rulest the raging of the sea, when the waves thereof arise, thou stillest them. Thou hast broken Rahab in pieces, as one that is slain. Thou hast scattered thine enemies with thy strong arm. The heavens are thine, the earth also is thine. As for the world and the fullness thereof, thou hast founded them. Psalm 89, verses 9 through 11. This likewise is related to God setting the boundaries of the sea, which is mentioned in the apocryphal prayer of Manasseh, chapters 2 through 3. In other words, God assured that the sea was not allowed to exceed its limits, which would otherwise obliterate life on land. This correspondence between Enuma Elish and the biblical creation, however, goes far deeper, in the recognition that the very order of the creation of Genesis chapter 1 is reflected in the generations of gods in Enuma Elish, which is enumerated in the following table. Genesis creation. Day 1, light from dark. Day 2, water separation. Day 3, dry land. Day 4, heavens made. Day 5, oceans made. Day 6, mankind made. Day 7, God rests. Generation of gods. Day 1, Apsu and Tiamat. Day 2, Lamu and Lahamu. Day 3, Anshar and Kishar. Day 4, Anu. Day 5, Ea or Nidamud. Day 6, Marduk. Day 7, gods relieved from labors. God of the two semispheres, the fresh and salt water, the silt lands, the heavens, the waters, creator of mankind. And here, just as Yahweh in resting upon the seventh day establishes henceforth the holiness of that day, the Sabbath, so too in Enuma Elish is the creation of man followed by their construction of a temple called Esaglia, Tablet 6. Likewise, with the establishment of religious rituals, sacrifices, and practices, and even the 7 ranks of cultic initiation. This underscores the importance of Enuma Elish at the mythological level, but on the level of paleoastronomy or searching out stellar knowledge, the creation myth associates the defeat of Apsu and Tiamat with the establishment of cosmic forces as designated in Tablet 5, which is like the forces of order overcoming the forces of chaos, even as a personified chaos. However, the most useful section in this regard is lacking due to breaks in the tablet itself, and thus it has been restored through the utilization of information from astrological tablets, which are plentiful, however, to simulate what these missing verses might have been like. But the end result remains yet unsatisfying, because the meaningfulness of the passages is lost, even if its content and style might be mimicked in the cause of reconstructing the complete tale. But preceding this gap, there is enough to provide some basic information about their calendar of a 12-month year, with each month being 30 days, and this is made clear through its definition of the character of the moon as it waxes and wanes through the month. Beyond this, the Babylonian creation epic proceeds to its inevitable conclusion, with the conflict of cosmic forces leading to the eventual creation of the world and of mankind. And this latter is itself taken up in the myth following, Atrahasis, which is one which runs similarly to the Noah story of Genesis. But while the name of Noah and some of the tale's other details arise from the Epimia in Phrygia, the survivor of the Great Flood in the original Hebrew version appears to have been rather the patriarch Abraham. This is both apparent from the similarity between their two names, Atrahasis/Abraham, but likewise the words which God speaks to Abraham as the only remaining segment to be retained are not unique among other world flood myths. And the Lord said unto Abram, Lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art northward, and southward, and eastward, and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. Genesis 13, verses 14 through 17. Here the God tells the lone survivor of the flood that the earth he sees stretching out around him henceforth belongs to himself and all of his descendants. Given that the beasts and giants of the prior age, evidenced by the bones of Mesozoic reptiles and Pleistocene megafauna, have all been wiped out. This has been transmogrified completely by the biblical editors into the conferring of the land of Canaan unto Abraham and his descendants through Isaac and Jacob, which served a more immediate political purpose at a far later time. Yet there remained the troubled mankind caused for the gods, which arose from his incessant noise, exponential increase, and unlimited lifespan. Thus the gods must take steps to assure that man does not come to grow so numerous yet again, and thus the gods bring mortality to mankind, along with a range of other plagues to beset him. And thus is the stage set for the following history of mankind. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he is also flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. Genesis 6 and 3. Although the gods are at the same time convinced that humankind must never come to an end due to the delight they enjoy from the sacrifices made to them, and this is even included in the conclusion of the Noah flood, where he makes his sacrifices a pleasing odor to God, which causes him to pledge that he will never destroy the earth again. And Noah builded an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And the Lord smelled a sweet savor, and the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more every living thing as I have done. While the earth remaineth, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease. Genesis 8:20 through 22. He subsequently leaves his bow, rainbow, as an indicator of this symbolic of the covenant made with mankind, just as in Enuma Elish the bow Marduk uses to slay Tiamat, to still the raging sea, is hung up in the heavens as the bow star, or Canis Major, by the sky god Anu. Then, in the case of Atrahasis, the rainbow is depicted rather as the necklace of Nintu, or Belet Eli, and the rainbow is commonly held to be the necklace of the mother goddess, as in the case of the retrieval of the Norse goddess Freya's necklace after a battle is fought between its thief, Loki, and its rescuer, Heimdall, the gods of fire and water in the form of a cloudburst. Yet it must also be that the mother goddess was known to wear an actual necklace made in the shape of flies, which were apparently created by Anu, and were henceforth to decorate her chest in eternal memory of the great flood. Thus there appears to be some intermingling of conceptions, as here the necklace which appears is one no doubt familiar and particular to Nintu, rather than the goddess setting forth the rainbow as an eternal reminder of the flood, associated with her own covenant with mankind, which she makes clear when she declares, He must now save me from harm by offering sacrifice. Although it is not likely that the book of Genesis stories of the creation and flood were immediately aware of or based upon these original Mesopotamian myths, they certainly would have been inheritors of the various mythological traditions of the Near East when the biblical books were in the process of being composed during the 6th century through 2nd centuries BC. But these episodes are not important merely from their having close biblical parallels. Rather, it is beneficial to view them within the very same context of theological conceptions and comprehensions of any other period of time. Since these verses once served the very purpose of providing explanations for the ways of the world and the experiences of man. This theological and sociological significance can be seen in how the poem Enuma Elish was utilized annually at the New Year's festival at Babylon, where it would be openly recited or even acted out as a symbolic recurrence of the creation coincident with the creation of the new year. And it is known that the semi-historical work of Berosus, Babylonica, is a product of Hellenistic times, which is precisely the period when the so-called priestly or P document was being composed or brought together. This is recognizable in the correspondence between Berosus's 432,000 years given for the rule of the 10 antediluvian kings, which in Genesis is given as a duration of 1,656 years. But 432,000 years is 86,400 times 5, while 1,656 years is 86,400 weeks, and thus there remains a clear uniformity between them. But this does not insist that the writers of P were aware of Berosus's work, though they may have been, only that they would have had access to some of the very materials which were knocking about the Near East during that antiquarian age. For instance, in the biblical flood story, the chief character is named Noah, while in Berosus it is Ziusudra, who is the Sumerian character. And the name of this Ziusudra is related to that of Atrahasis through his epithet, the faraway, or Sudra, while the name Utnapishtim also appears to be related to Noah through the syllable Na. Likewise, there exist parallels with the releasing of a dove and a raven, as well as the boat coming to rest upon a mountaintop, provided from the Gilgamesh cycle. Although the detail of the olive branch would have arisen from Palestine rather than Mesopotamia, the received form of Atrahasis is also older than that of Enuma Elish and dated around 1700 BC. Thus it also precedes its biblical doppelganger by at least 1,000 years. Likewise, the story of Atrahasis surely held a prominent place in Bronze Age Mesopotamia. If we can permit ourselves for a moment to imagine an earth prior to the period of biblical prominence, from its similar emphasis upon both the creation and plight of man, so that it was even included as an episode within the Gilgamesh cycle. In this story, the man who survived the flood, Utnapishtim, was the only one to have gained or retained his immortality. Yet there is a sweeping connection between these formative events of the world, as performed by the gods, and conceptions of eternity and immortality, which establish the firm distinction between the realm of heaven and that of earth. Though it is still made clear in the creation story that humanity is a product of the divine, and must be reminded that although his body is mortal, that his spirit is immortal. Tablet 1. Taken together, these two stories ought to be viewed in the same manner that any ancient myth ought to be, downplaying the necessity for a unified and continuous narrative as the Holy Bible follows, since it must be viewed that these biblical myths too once existed in this same form, as did their Babylonian counterparts before they were collected and assembled together as we have inherited them in the biblical canon. Yet, the same thing could have been done with these Babylonian myths, or indeed any mythological tradition, if the right dynamics and motives had coincided at a particularly propitious time, as it did among the Hebrews beginning in the 6th century BC. Yet given their force, starkness, and even archetypical familiarity, these Mesopotamian myths can still be given the breath of life anew and serve a purpose greater than that of mere historical value, but rather to be taken as works of imaginative literature to be considered, felt, and enjoyed. Peace and blessings to you all.